Hi, my name's Vince Sheehan, and today I'd like to talk about Haydn's 104th Symphony in D major, the London Symphony. I'd like to go through this lovely work, exploring the structures of each of the movements. That's why I do these videos, to help people follow where the music goes. And if you're interested in following with a score, I've put a description of each of the movements with bar numbers below. Now, Haydn wrote this, his last symphony, in 1795. It was composed on his second visit to London. He was brought over, of course, by Salomon, the impresario. And by this point, he was actually writing his last couple of symphonies for a guy called Viotti, another impresario. And this turned out to be his last symphony, premiered at the King's Theatre, which, if you're familiar with London, was on Haymarket in the West End, on the 4th of May 1795, in a programme with many other Haydn works, including the Symphony 100, the military symphony. By the way, I've done a video on that piece as well if you want to watch that. And he was delighted about the reception of this work. He wrote after the performance, "The whole company was thoroughly pleased, and so was I. I made 4,000 gulden on this evening. Such a thing is possible only in England." And like the other London symphonies, his last 12 symphonies, people seem to respond to the expansion of symphonic form, the surprises Haydn sticks in to confound their expectations, and the general wittiness of how he presents and develops his ideas in this work. Now, like many of Haydn's symphonies of this period, we have a slow introduction in bare octaves like this. We move to F. Really dramatic, fanfare-like music. And interestingly, he doesn't spell out the thirds of the chords. You know, it could be in D minor or D major at the beginning. Just have that bare fifth sound. Stark, arresting music to begin this. Eventually, if we come to the Allegro, it's a monothematic sonata form movement. What do I mean by that? Well, the whole of the material is based around one theme, both in the first subject group in the tonic and the second subject group in the dominant. So we begin in D major, Allegro, with this idea. And that melody really is this whole melody which sustains this whole movement. Haydn was so great at that, just spinning out so much music from one idea. I love the syncopation in this melody as well in the first subject group. Suspensions in the second violins, and we then hear this rousing fortissimo climax, which heralds the transition actually. And eventually it takes us to the dominant A major, where lo and behold, we hear exactly the same tune again in this monothematic sonata form movement. In the second subject group, we hear an assortment of other loosely related, kind of triumphant sounding motifs as well. We have this. And then we're into the Codetta. Etc. The whole exposition is repeated then with that melody carrying the whole thing. If you think the exposition is making the most out of a single tune, the development takes it even further, because almost obsessively Haydn dwells on those repeated notes in the first subject. If you remember this. Those repeated notes. In the development, we hear that da 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 repeated time and time again in all kinds of different keys. So we begin like this. So that's all that dum 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 da dum. He's just taking that motif from that melody and just using that to sustain this development. At one point we go into C sharp minor. And then we have this great bit like this. I love that difference between E major and E minor. But I think the main point of this development is you just hear that everywhere. Bum, 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 ba, ba, all the way through. This symphony could also be a symphony of pauses. An example of Haydn's humour. There's so many general pauses in this music throughout all the movements. And at the end of this development is a classic example. The music just stops, just hangs in midair before we come back to the first subject in its entirety back in the tonic. Etc. Slightly scored differently here. We have the transition. Before eventually we settle down into, I suppose, the second subject in the tonic, which of course is the same tune. We've heard it so much by now, Haydn varies it. And then we hear the Codetta again, and this fascinating movement ends on a note of triumph. The second is a ternary form piece, and it's very expressive. We have this idea in G major to begin with. There's these sforzandi, these accents on weak beats of the bar. We have the melodies extended then with this. to beginning. Then that section's repeated. Really delightful music. The B section moves into G minor and it develops the melody we've heard already in this movement. So in the flutes we hear this. Now we have this cry of pain in the strings. I love that bit. It kind of really hits you there all of a sudden. Such a shifting mood there. We have another empty bar. Listen out for that. These empty bars, these sudden pauses in the orchestra all the way through. Before we have a kind of false return to the initial idea, but it's in the wrong key. The music is still developing. We hear these semiquavers right at the end of this B section. I think Beethoven took this in one of his symphonies, I think possibly the 6th. Then we're back to G for an embellished version, an expanded version of the original melody. There's some lovely figuration in the woodwind and the first and second violins here. Lovely triplets, really charming. And then that eventually takes us to the end of this delightful slow movement. The third movement, the minuetto allegro, is as you'd expect in strict ternary form. We have this idea in the A section, the minuet. I love that bit there. There's these lovely cross rhythms. It gives the music such vitality hearing that da da dum da da dum da da dum in the 1 2 3 1 2 3, almost like a hemiola effect. So that's really the minuet. And the trio, we move to B flat major. So from D major, a lovely key change. And then that sighing da 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 is developed slightly before we're brought back. We have another pause and we're brought back to the minuet. The finale is great. It's like the first movement, a monothematic movement, a monothematic sonata form movement, i.e. modulations are what you'd expect in a sonata form movement, but it's all based on one melody. And in this case, apparently, it's a Croatian folk song melody. And it's very kind of rustic outdoors music. Spirituoso, Haydn marks it as. And you can hear that Beethoven was inspired by this when he wrote the finale for his 7th Symphony. We have a transition based on the same idea, and then we're into the dominant A major, where we hear this version of the tune. Underneath, we've got this counter melody in the violins. And then we come to the Codetta. We have this really exciting development. Have a listen to a bit of it here. Again, listen out for the empty bars, the pauses. But then we all of a sudden come back to the first subject again, the recapitulation. And it comes in really unexpectedly. We have this quiet music. And then it's suddenly into... We're back into the recapitulation. The music blazes away as it did before. No transition this time, straight into that second subject group. The same melody, of course. This time we hear it in the basses. We then have this terrifically exciting coda, which rounds off this lovely and great symphony, the last of the London symphonies, indeed the last of any symphony Haydn wrote. Thanks for watching this video. If this is your kind of thing, please click like and subscribe. If there's anything you'd like me to look at in the future, please put them in the comments below. And if you're able to as well, please consider donating, even if it's a small amount, just to help me keep this channel going. Thanks for watching and all the best. Bye.